Hi, I'm Ron.
I'm Don.
Welcome to the Ron and Don Show. Today's topic is making friends, and we don't just mean any friends.
No, we're looking for friends that will help us in the business world. We're going to have to deal with operations, finance folks, design folks, decision makers for spending money, people who will help us with planning on how to spend money, and eventually people who will pay the people that we've hired.
I'm thinking of IT, and I'm thinking of marketing.
Oh, they don't count. Yeah, we have to be able to account for it, and we need the tools. That's IT, marketing, and of course, you know, people know me way too well down in human resources. I've learned over the years a number of things that have helped me in my career. One of them is very well identified by a speech that was once given by Phil Hickey at the RIFMA organization, and he identified it very well. He used the term, make a friend in finance, and that was really an excellent advice. Those folks are very specific about the rules that they have to follow with Sarbanes-Oxley and all kinds of governmental restrictions put on them. So they can be a little bit tough to help you keep your friends in operations. But if you make a friend in finance and you can get them to hear the problems that you're going through and how this particular item should be either capitalized, how long it should be capitalized for, or if it's a repair, how you can mitigate that to have less of a detrimental effect on the P&L and the bonuses of the people that it's going to affect in operations and throughout the organization.
Well, and I would say too, from the contractor's perspective, even the way you submit a proposal for improvements, the language you use affects how finance does their job.
Absolutely.
So it's important for the contractor as well to have at least a working relationship within the finance department to understand that words like repair versus replace have two completely different effects on the way they book an expense or a capital expense to a restaurant.
Or upgrade and enhance.
Indeed.
Well, one of my favorites is that particular term. When you're taking an asset and you're correcting its current condition, but you're also upgrading and enhancing it, in most organizations you can capitalize that. And that takes it out of the R&M, which generally affects operations bonus. They are more encouraged to do that work.
So you've just made a friend in operations at the same time because of your friend in finance.
But if you're going to fight finance, guess what? You're not going to get those subtleties, and they're not going to work for your particular point. And in the end, you're going to then also have an enemy over in operations.
There's so many other departments within the organization that it's important to have a strong relationship with. And I think too of the design team. When replacing things, especially material components that are in the guest touch areas, it is critical that you don't just assume that what was on the wall is what's going back onto the wall. There are design changes happening all the time within organizations, and the wall that was once blue may no longer be desired to be blue.
Might be repositioning our image either through marketing or through design, and that may be something that you may not have been fully a party of. The other side of that whole issue is when you have something that is costing you a ton of money to maintain, knowing how to talk with the design and the engineering departments is kind of important so that they can recognize how their particular work is negatively impacting the restaurant's bottom line. You get that corrected, and the future managers, you've won a friend with those particular operations folks because you've reduced their costs and their headaches at the same time.
And I think too that we can broaden this conversation to include now the construction or new construction department. It's been our experience over the years that the facilities department having a strong communication link with construction enables construction to, going forward, find out from facilities what's really not working in the grand scheme of things. You know, how well did that whole concept of having bare concrete floors in the back of the house work out? Because it's always the facilities department in the long run that has to budget for and deal with things that may not have been as well thought out in the design stage as they should have been.
I'll give you an example. A lot of facilities used to have curbs they would put equipment on, and they still do in certain places. But in restaurants, they used to put all the cook line equipment on curbs. You couldn't clean underneath the equipment, so you would have slow buildup of grease and debris and food underneath there, and that will relate directly back to another episode that we have is on pest remediation. You've now developed a home for all those pests to live because of a design and a construction issue of original that was in the plans. When you have to take your proposals in to get approval to spend the money, there's various levels of approvals depending on how much it is. What happens in those conversations, you have to be very precise about here's one option and here's how much it costs and here's what the net result will be. Here's another option, here's what it'll cost, here's what the net result will be. Here's the option of doing nothing, here's what's going to happen, and here's what your eventual cost will be. How long this is going to last, how long it'll work for, what will be the effect to the guests and the operations. When can we do this work and not cause a detrimental effect to the operational staff so we don't lose employees as a result of making it more difficult? And you have to have all that ready for the approval process. And one thing that has to happen is when they make a decision on one of your choices, if you don't get the choice you want, you got to go with it because they have the purse strings. They know what they can afford, and they also have been given all the options, all the information, and they're making a calculated decision for the business and for the company. So it's not, well, oh, those dummies, I can't believe they didn't accept the right answer. Well,
I think the way you would paraphrase that is to say, suck it up.
Yeah, just eat into it. Now, if you know from your experience that it's going to go this direction as a result of that decision, you then need to immediately start preparing for, okay, when that disaster happens, you already know what you're going to do, how you're going to do it, who you're going to call, and you just put your little page together so you're ready for it when it happens, and I call Ron and say, I need you over at XYZ, this is the situation, and you call the operational folks, and you call the decision makers and say, here it is, and I need your approval to spend this money because we're now in a disaster. And you don't say it's because your dumb decision, it's because we have a disaster and we need to move forward on it.
When we talk about making friends, we've heard the perspective from the facility manager, but I'd like to offer a little input from the contractor's perspective as well, because I think ultimately, ultimately the role of the contractor is to help ease the burden on the facility manager. So if a contractor is, for example, not submitting his invoice for a completed job to corporate in the right format or with the right supporting data, then it ultimately makes it more difficult for not only the contractor because he can't get paid, but also for the facility manager because it's either that delayed payment has skewed the results of your budgets or you have to simply back up and get involved again to help ensure that your contractors are getting paid.
Or let's say that you have delayed sending in that invoice and it goes into a separate quarter. And if it's a large enough invoice, or if you have enough invoices that it makes a big enough number, it can change the quarterly results from a finance standpoint. We're back to the finance again. So timely, and that it's happening in the right order. Now, operations can mess it up if they don't sign off on the invoices. And then you get a call from the contractor saying, well, I've submitted it all, and it isn't, I haven't been paid yet. Well, the contractor can help us a little bit by making sure that the operations sign it by presenting the invoice in a timely manner and sometimes even standing there and getting the signature and sending it in. The release of liens, insurances, all those other documents that are certificates of document must be in place to get paid. And if the contractor hasn't got all that cleared up or their certificate of insurance has gone out of date, that'll mess up all that process. And then you get to the close of the fiscal year and everybody's trying to get their invoices in to get paid because they know that you don't like to have anything go over, and if it goes over, you may just sit on it for a week or two or a month because you've now messed up the fiscal year. invoicing can be a headache, or if you've got an understanding with the contractor, get your invoices in, get them in the right format, get them done right, get the insurances right, and we'll think about paying you.
Send me a check. Interestingly enough, we've started this episode talking about friendships. In essence, we're talking about relationships. And in the scenario you just described, there is the back and forth, which is the net value of any relationship. The relationship between the contractor, the facilities manager, the operator, the design team, and the finance team. So those are 5 different folks with 5 seemingly different objectives in each of their departments. So thank you for joining us for yet another Ron
and Don
show, the Ron and Don Show. If you'd like to send us an email and ask us a question or challenge us on something we may have said here or Don may have said here today, please do. How do they sign up, Don?